learning and e-networking. The session begins with expressing my heartfelt thanks to Amity Education Group for giving us this platform to network, hear, listen, learn from business stalwarts, alumni, leadership coaches, and seasoned professionals from different walks of life who have wealth of experience, wisdom, and knowledge. Heartfelt thanks to our director, ma'am, Dr. Shivali Dhingra, for her constant motivation, support, and helping us deliver the best lectures even in these tough times of social distancing and lockdown. Thank you for inspiring each one of us every day, ma'am. Topic for today's webinar is design thinking, innovation through empathy. Well, in a world where assumption takes precedence over honest survey, the latter is becoming more crucial in order to deliver something truly remarkable. One such stage where a humanistic and delicate perusal of of customer's mind comes into the picture is frequently heard concept in various sectors called design thinking. Design thinking is considered a foolproof method of bringing innovation to a sector by introducing a product or process that precisely adheres to the needs of the customers. But often it misses setting up a new mark in innovation because it lacks, or rather blatantly skips, a key parameter: empathizing. Today, amongst us, we have a very vibrant speaker, Mr. Siddhant Agarwal. A very warm welcome to you, sir. About Siddhant, he currently works as program coordinator with developer relations team at Google India. As part of his role at Google, he takes care of Google Developer Experts Program and TensorFlow user groups in India. He's also been leading the strategic and executional efforts for the Build for Digital India program, launched in collaboration with Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, Government of India. Previously, he has worked at IBM and BHead. He is also instrumental in designing and providing consultation for product development and business development strategies around AI-based products. He's also been an Intel software innovator, volunteers with Head Start Network Foundation, and is also the head for partnerships in New Delhi cohort. He's also a mentor of change with Atal Innovation Mission. We are extremely elated to have you, Siddhant. The board is all now yours.
Thank you. Thanks, Ritika. And a warm welcome to everyone out there who is listening to me. So let me start with the topic for the day, design thinking, innovation through empathy. So like you must have heard, like almost every company competes to some degree on the basis of continual innovation. Design thinking helps foster a culture of innovation and lets teams generate and test ideas creatively and effectively. Whether they are trying to bring internet access to remote communities or developing new methodologies, design thinking helps in every way. It's considered a foolproof method of bringing innovation to a sector by introducing a product or process that precisely adheres to the needs of customers. But often it misses setting up a new mark in innovation because it lacks, or rather bluntly skips a key parameter: empathizing. With this note, let me start the day today on introducing myself. My name is Siddhant, and Ritika had already introduced me to you. A quick introduction once again. My name is Siddhant, and I work with developer relations team at Google in India. What we do, we enable and empower the vibrant Indian developer ecosystem to build impactful solutions using Google technologies that can change the lives of the next billion users. So what do we really do? These are some of the programs that we engage with. I'm not sure if you have heard of any of these, but let me just go through these programs one by one, just in a quick nutshell. So GDGs,
Excuse me, Siddhant, your PPT is not visible. Just sorry for interruption.
is it visible now? Can you see the PPT now?
Just yes, is it on GDG Developer Student Clubs?
Yes, that's
All
correct.
right. Okay.
Yeah. So I was there on that slide. Uh, So GDGs, Google Developer Groups, are community-led groups of developers who are interested in Google Developers technology. These groups conduct in-person meetups, as in like in the previous times, with demos and talks, both small and large, and sometimes include activities like code sprints and hackathons. Developer student clubs, DSCs, are university-based community groups for students interested in Google's developer technology. These are students from all undergrad or graduate programs with an interest in growing as a developer are welcome. By joining a DSC, students grow their knowledge in a peer-to-peer learning environment, and they build solutions for local businesses and their community. Next is Google Developer Experts. This is a program that I lead in India. This is a global network of highly experienced technology influencers who actively support developers, companies, and communities globally. GDEs are independent volunteers. They do not work at Google or work for Google in any capacity. They just do it as a shared community contribution. The GFS Accelerator, Google for Startups Accelerator. Maybe this is something of your interest. This is Google's global acceleration program. GFSA helps startups build and scale great products and companies.
I'm
by
sorry to
connecting them.
intervene, but hi, I'm sorry to intervene, but the audience is not able to see the slides that you're talking about. I mean, they are posting messages. If you could just please, reload the slides, Siddhant.
Yes, I will just do that. One second. Okay, just a second. Yeah.
It's gone again.
Is it there now?
Yes.
Google's Global Acceleration Program, it helps startups build and scale great products and companies by connecting them with the best of Google. It's people, network, thought leadership, and technology. While Women Tech Makers program, it engages over more than like 100K women in tech across 190 countries each year. This program provides visibility, community, and resources for women in technology across all career levels to drive innovation and participation in the industry. So before I begin, let me take a step back and just let me allow me a moment to talk about the current COVID-19 pandemic, which has caused extreme amount of panic and suffering to the entire world, and to say that we are all in this together and we will win this together. This too shall pass. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and stay indoors. With this, let's begin. Before I move on and talk about empathy, I talk about innovation, I talk about design thinking, let me talk about design sprints. What are design sprints? So design sprints, it's a proven methodology for solving problems through designing, prototyping, and testing ideas with users. Design sprints quickly align teams under shared vision with clearly defined goals and deliverables. Ultimately, think of it, it's a tool for developing a hypothesis, prototyping an idea, and testing it rapidly with as little investment as possible in as real an environment as possible. So that's how design thinking really works. But it is not an individual game. It's a team sport. It's a team sport. You can't play it individually. It was developed at Google from a vision to grow UX culture and the practice of design leadership across the organization. So what happens? Multiple teams within Google experimented with different methods from traditional UX practice. IDEO, the Stanford D School, business strategy, and even psychology, applying them to support divergent and convergent thinking with teams. The resulting framework and the set of methods is flexible, and teams are continuing to adapt it based on different goals and organizational cultures. So if you look at this slide, like it talks about all the domains, like it's not restricted to designers. It's not restricted to engineers. It's also expands to product managers, marketing, sales, strategy. Everyone come together into a single platform and they execute these design sprints to come up with a feasible solution to understand like from their each of their domain, like what is profitable, what is feasible, what is desirable for the end user, and they come up with this kind of a framework. So basically at the core, design sprints help us move from the current state to the future state. And the path they follow basically elevates the entire process and move to the future state in a faster way. So when I talk about design sprints, the core principle behind design sprints is design thinking process. It is basically a process that focuses on solving challenges with user-centric and innovative results. So we begin with empathy and explore ways of putting ourselves in the user's shoes so that we can define a point of view for how our user relates to the problem at hand. From there, we brainstorm 10x ideas and then prototype them so we can fail fast and learn from our ideas through testing. Let me define each of these stages. So these are the design thinking process that we follow: empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. I will try my best to explain each of these stages, these processes, as I go forward. Let's talk about empathy, empathizing. Empathizing is the process of getting to know your potential users. You must identify the user. You have to be very specific. Find out about them through observations or interviews. You do a bunch of things. Note that observation is valueless and does not involve interpretation of what you see. Uh, just record what happens and try to understand it later. Let's take an example. But before that, if you're thinking that empathy is like sympathy, that's incorrect. Empathy is not sympathy. Empathy is a term we use for the ability to understand other people's feelings as if we are having them ourselves. While sympathy refers to the ability to take part in someone else's feelings, mostly by feeling sorrowful about their misfortune. But we don't feel that as if we are having them. Empathy can also mean projecting our own feeling onto a work of art or any other object, while sympathy can be used in relation to opinions and taste, like when you say that you have sympathy for a political cause. Let's understand it better. So this,
Siddhant, your PPT is vanishing now and then. It's having a problem because the recording is not being able.
okay. Is it fine now over here?
Yeah. I mean, I think it just stays for a few seconds and then it goes away. If you could just please take care of that, it's a
Okay,
request.
let me do one thing. Let me just switch to another mode then. 1 second.
In general sense, the way Siddhant has explained, it is our ability to see the world through other people's eyes and, to see what they see, what they feel, and, how they experience things as they do. So, in reality, of course, none of us can fully experience things the way someone else does. But, we can attempt to get as close as possible. And we do this by, putting aside our own preconceived ideas and choosing to understand the ideas, the thoughts, the needs of others instead. So, when as a layman I talk about, design thinking, I would just say that it is, a deep understanding of the problems and realities of the people you are designing for. So technically, it involves, learning about the difficulties people face, uncovering their latent needs and, their desires in order to, explain their behaviors. So I think with that time, I have tried to pick up a gist to what Siddhant has explained, and we extremely look forward to him to help us understand how we can gain deeper appreciation and understanding of people's emotional and physical needs, and the way they see, they understand, and how we can actually blend this with the traditional marketing research. We can blend it with this empathetic research that is coming up. For instance, like nowadays you see that what we prefer to sit to watch TV. I mean, what are things we like, kind of recommendations we get. So it gives us a fair amount of interpretation. So, and I think, yes, the slides are back, and we do see some good looking people on the slides with wearing masks, and I think, Siddhant, we're all set to continue from here.
Yes, we are all set to continue from here. Yes.
All right, the board is all yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for chiming in. So I'm not sure if you have seen this, but this is an image of President of Slovakia who has nailed his coronavirus look. So this was in the news some time back that hey, the President of Slovakia has nailed her coronavirus look. Uh, and then there was this kind of an image that's going around, like people are just trying different approaches, uh, matching their outfits, the designs of the mask and everything. Then this image went online. Like you can see a smile. So you must be thinking that this is a fashion statement, but this is not a fashion statement. If I have to talk about what is it, let me tell you the story. So as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, the healthcare workers are desperately seeking PPE. If you know about PPE, it's personal protective equipment kits. So which is in short supply, although many people have been creating reusable fabric masks, which the like CDC Center for Diseases Control and Prevention has recommended to help slow the spread of coronavirus. A key group have been excluded from this entire movement. Like we have been creating fabric masks, but a key group had been excluded, which is the deaf and the hard of hearing community. Now, in order to help this deaf and hard of hearing community, this girl named Ashley Lawrence, the one on the left hand side, she works with, she's a college student and she's studying education for the deaf and hard of hearing. So she could really empathize with these community users, like how will they interact, how will they communicate their feelings, how will they get to know what other people are saying in this current situation. Like in the if you go back of pre-COVID-19 times, they used to like have lip movement that they can read, they can just like look in like they can also communicate to you via lip movements and stuff. But now what we have our masks on, and how can we communicate and how can they like interact? So they designed, this girl, Ashley Lawrence, designed this face mask with a clear window that allows others to see and read lips and facial expressions. This was not possible if she was not in putting herself into their shoes, if she wouldn't have empathized with them, if she couldn't empathize with those users. That's one example that happened in a recent time. Let me talk about a very classic case study uh, that helps design, like that puts into context that how design thinking helps in innovation and how one comes up with innovative concepts through empathy and through design thinking. If you have seen this machine, for those of you who don't know, this is an MRI machine. Uh, MRI basically stands for magnetic resonance imaging. It's a type of scan that uses strong magnetic fields and radio waves to produce detailed images of inside of the body. There is a scanner, there's a large tube, it contains powerful magnets, and you just lie inside and inside the tube and during scan. So what then? Like this exists, it still exists, then what then? So diagnostic imaging procedures are cutting edge technology, we all know this, but at the same time, they are unpleasant experience for the patients and even more for the pediatric patients, for kids, for children. So what happened is this guy, Doug Deeds, who is design principal at GE Healthcare, he's an industrial engineer. He used to work over there and he's been doing this for more than 20 years. Uh, he remembered the first time when he saw a girl who was crying on her way to a scanner that was designed by him. So he was like, he was taken aback. He was shocked. Like I had designed something which is like a cutting edge thing in the healthcare industry. And why is this girl fearing from going? It is helping her only. So uh, Doug suddenly saw a situation in hand, and he realized it from the eyes of that girl. The room itself is kind of dark, and with those flickering lights all around that machine, those flickering fluorescent lights and that machine, and the way he had designed basically looked like it's a brick with a hole in it, and you're going in like a black hole kind of a thing. So now So one part of it was done, like he was able to empathize with the user. He was able to empathize with that girl. What next? He has to come up and define it, define that problem statement and ideate more on it. So define, when I say, it's like after you understand the person who will be using that product, you define the problem it will solve. What problems does your the user have that you could solve? A good problem statement is open to many possible solutions. You have to create a specific and meaningful challenge over here. And when I say ideate, it's basically brainstorming as many solutions as possible to that problem. The the goals are volume and diversity. So we have to come up with as many possible solutions. You don't have to stick to one solution that, hey, I will do this. And then you evaluate on those ideas that either they are good or they're bad. That will happen later on. This stage just calls for more ideas. Like you just ideate upon it. Like how will you do this? So what did Doug Deeds do? So a new challenge was born to him. How could one create a scanner experience for children that these children could love? So Doug Deeds tried to find a new inspiration for this project by trying to find out, like through design thinking, can it be done? So he went to Stanford D School for a workshop. The workshop offered Doug new tools that ignited his ignited his creative confidence. He learned about a human-centered approach to design and innovation, going through the human-centered design process with people in diverse industries and roles, like from management to human resources to finance, struck a chord with him. He started by observing and gaining empathy for young children at a daycare center. He talked to child life specialists to understand like what pediatric patients went through. He reached out for help from people all around him, including a small volunteer team from GE Healthcare, experts from a local children's museum, and doctors and staff, and from like these two hospitals. So he defined a problem statement that how can one create a scanner experience for the children that they would love, and then he ideated upon it. Post the ideation, like he thought about some ideas, then he thought about what next. Like I have ideated, I have to put them on paper, like I have to design something now. That's what is called as prototyping. So prototyping is basically an example of the part of product. So you don't design everything, like you just create a small prototype of it. It is not a fully featured one. It is anything. It could be in a physical form. It could be posters, role plays, objects, and storyboards are all prototypes as long as they demonstrate some aspect of the potential product. So that's what prototyping is. The goal is to show, like, not tell about the product, but understand the problem and users better. So the feature of the products is good, but it should empathize with that problem and the users better. Prototype is fast and low cost. Failure helps you improve future products. So what did Doug Deeds do in this case? He created the first prototype of what would become the Adventure Series scanner and was able to get it installed as a pilot program in the Children's Hospital at the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center. This is what Doug Deeds invented after his user research. In the pilot adventure, a visual transformation of the equipment that was available before. Patients are on a dock. You can see like from this image itself, like it's like you are on a dock and there's a shipwreck. There are some sand castles in the corner. Children then work on the plank as if like they are going into a scanner. They don't realize that they are actually being scanned. They're just in a like fairy tale land. This is another example that he created. So this is called as Coral City Adventure. In the emergency room, it gives children an underwater experience. It has a disco ball that makes light like bubbles around the room. Children get into like a yellow submarine and listen to the sound of harps while the procedure is taking place. Then he came up with like bunch of similar examples. Like he came up with the cozy camp setting, which gives children the chance to be scanned in a specialized sleeping bag. under a starry sky in an impressive camp setting. So once Doug had created these prototypes, he got this pilot done. There's one fundamental aspect that has to be done, which is testing and validating. Get the feedback on the prototype from users, refine and create new prototype if required based on the testing that you have done. So prototype as if you know that you're right. So that's what prototyping is basically is, that you're designing something because you feel that yes, this is the right approach, but you test it as if that you are wrong. You don't know that this will really work. So some positive impacts derive from the Beats Adventure series. First of all, like the patient satisfaction scores went up 90%. Children do not suffer any anxiety anymore. Instead, some of them even ask their parents if they can come back tomorrow. It makes easier for children to hold still during the procedure, or in turn prevents the doctor from having to do repeat scans. Um, they would need less of uh, anesthesia, which means like more patients could get scanned each day, which heavily impacts the financial side of the equation. So think of it, like everything was interlinked. The children, their parents, like in fact, the experience of joy and play during the scan. It also took away the fear away from the parents, as the Beats put it, like if you got the child, you got the parent. If you got the parent, you got the child. So he was trying and reaching out to every possible user that is linked to this program. The children, their parents, and even the hospital was getting benefited, because now they would have to do more. They can do more scans, and now he trains like GE employees to use design thinking innovation in their teams. So this was one example that I had taken to explain of empathizing with the user, then defining a problem statement, then ideating on it, and then uh, coming up with a prototype. And the last and the most important is test and validate. If you recall back on the design sprints, the first slide that I showed about design sprints, an overview of it was learn, build, ideate, build, learn, and then you have to reiterate the loop. So you ideate something, you build upon something, you learn from those mistakes, and then you reiterate the entire loop. That's what design thinking, design sprints do. Uh, I will not go in depth of what is design sprints. Just in a nutshell, it's like different design organizations have come up with their own frameworks. Like Google design sprints follow a 6-stage framework, while Stanford E-School follows a 5-stage framework. IDEO follows a very different framework. But in a whole, what the end goal is to have a rapid prototyping, come up with good solutions in a small span of time, and be as real as possible, like you tested in the real environment. So a methodology differs, but the end goal remains the same for all of these sprints. Typically, each sprint usually takes like a 5 days. That's what a recommended approach by almost all of the design orgs. Whoever comes up with this design framework, like you have a 5-day design sprint, but it depends on the end user. They can go with a 3-day approach. Even a 1-day approach has been implemented. It's just that like some of the stages get reduced. You just try and tweak other stages. Maybe the prototyping you do in a wireframes. You don't do a physical prototyping of sort, so and so forth. So depending on the time the companies have, they go with that kind of an approach for design thinking and design sprints. So this was one example. Let me take another example and ask you, like, if you were to develop an internet-based solution that helps this old man, he could be a farmer, he could be a grocery store owner or a shepherd. How will you do it? How will, like, what are the things that you will keep in mind? So this is the problem statement in hand with you. How can you tackle this as a design in a design thinking approach? Uh, so you need to understand this user. You need to understand who this person is, and you need to empathize with that person. We're talking about an internet-based solution, so we need to keep in mind that these people are not our average Pixel or iPhone users. users use entry-level devices with different specs. They have the devices they use, the phones they use, they have limited storage and memory. Um, Older operating systems, they have feature phones like those T9 keypad phones that you have seen, a smaller screen. So keeping these things in mind, how will you come up with this? Come up with a solution for them. And that's not all. We are talking about an internet-based solution. We have to also think about what kind of, like, what is the medium to connect to internet? How do they do? For us, we have seen a transition from dial-up to modem to Ethernet to cellular, then to Wi-Fi. But these users, these people living in view countries or in view areas, these are still on like cellular data connections, which can be expensive, it can be slow, it can be patchy. So how will you build a data conscious product of feature that minimizes data usage, uh, that provides transparency and control over the data consumption, that proactively plan for latency? It provides a seamless experience between online and offline states, and do not consider offline as an edge case. So like oftentimes I have seen this happening, like companies, whenever they are experimenting on a new feature or a new product, they think of offline as an edge case scenario. Okay, if things go offline, this is the backup mode. However, for these users, the backup is the primary thing. What else? They are not familiar with phone-based identity. They are not familiar with an email-based identity. So if you're thinking of an internet-based solution where you are asking them to log in via email ID, maybe that's not a viable solution. They have phone numbers. They might not have email IDs. They are much familiar with just a phone-based authentication. Like they will have multiple SIMs, one for work or one for personal thing. Uh, and we have to keep in mind that these are mobile first users. We have seen a transition from a desktop to your iPads to your Macs and laptops, smart books and stuff. But these are mobile first users. They have not seen those kind of transition. For them, mobile is the internet, mobile is the computer, mobile is everything. They are not a desktop first user. So how will you build something that allows them to sign up to the product without any kind of an email authentication? It protects their user identity and privacy. So let me take a crack at it and decipher like how will you do it. So these are some of, again, some of the examples slash case studies that companies experimented to solve this kind of situation. They came up with innovative solutions for data conscious users. So we know that due to high cellular data costs, like at least in India, the costs are low, but there are many countries out there where the cellular data costs are exorbitant. So how to proactively manage the data usage when viewing the content on YouTube or Twitter. So YouTube came up with this feature called YouTube Go, and it's there in your usual YouTube application as well. YouTube Go was basically a variant that was created to help the entry-level devices. Like it has a completely new modified version of Android operating system called Android Go, and they will have a bunch of supporting applications from Google Play Store like YouTube Go, Gmail Go, Google Maps Go, and a sort. Basically, creating an ecosystem of products that works on low latency, that on low for the users that are very data conscious. So this application like YouTube, you have seen this offline feature. You cannot download content and save it for later. You also have an option to set a data cap, like a basic quality or a standard quality or a high quality of sort. Twitter also released Twitter Lite in April. It's like a progressive web app that comes with data-friendly features. Like you can have an offline access, you can have a data saver mode. You have recently seen, you might have heard of the news about Oyo having an Oyo Lite kind of an application. Hike also came up with this Hike to SMS and H2H offline, which basically allows you to send and receive messages even when the data is off, but works in an offline, like it syncs later on when things are online. What else? Recently, like last year in Google for India, we announced a Vodafone Idea phone line with the Google Assistant. Like for those who do not have internet connection, who do not have data, but still want to access the capabilities of Google Assistant, this entire concept was created. You just dial this toll-free number and you connect with the Google Assistant. You ask questions and get information. Pretty much the same way we do it in an online world. Also, and this is a very like kind of an example which everyone quotes. WhatsApp has been successful in not just in India but across various geographies because of its the way it identifies the user. Uh, to my understanding, WhatsApp was the first one to have a mobile-based authentication as part of its sign-in process. It didn't use any kind of email ID. No authentication is required from email. Um, you just need to have a phone number. So you would be like seeing this, like your parents, your grandparents, everyone is on WhatsApp. Even if they don't know how to use internet, they know how to use WhatsApp, and that's what happened with the popularity of WhatsApp and the usage of WhatsApp. Um, the users might not be too versed with like typing. So WhatsApp also introduced this voice messaging feature. Like it allows you to send audio messages in addition to your text messages. Again, you have seen this happening. You might have seen this happening with your parents or your grandparents also, or people who have more than like 50 years of age. They primarily use audio features, um, audio messaging feature. Similarly, Google's voice recognition algorithm is getting better and better. You would have seen this integrated in almost all of the applications these days, like with just tapping a button and saying out your command or it performs a task. It start like for YouTube, it immediately starts playing a video when you do a voice search. It's getting more powerful, in fact. Um, Again, last year at Google for India, we talked about real-time translation between two people speaking in Hindi and English. You can book your ride with Ola. You can check your bank balance. You can order food. Like you can do great things with just the power of voice. If I have to talk about something in the recent times, what changes that have been made, how innovation, how empathizing with the user has come into play. So this is COVID-19india.org dashboard. It's a real-time tracking dashboard made by a group of volunteers. These are like almost 74,000 plus volunteers on Telegram that are contributing to the development of this dashboard. Initially, when this dashboard was launched, it was purely in English. So those who are living in tier 2, tier 3 cities, those are not native English users. They don't know English. So how will you create something for them? So they came up recently. This was an update. So they converted their dashboard into vernacular languages. They started having content like you can see on the extreme left hand side. On the top of that button, you can see the languages listed. You select the language and it changes the dashboard into that language for the users to make it understandable. And not only that, these folks at Slang Labs, they went a step ahead. They enabled voice technology in the tracker. So they created a version of this COVID-19india.org tracker and made it voice enabled. So if you look at bottom right corner, you will see the search with microphone off button. So what it does is like you, uh, if I'm not wrong, the last support I checked was in Hindi and English only. They had plans to add more vernacular languages over there, but you just fill out the name of the district or the state or the city, and it tells you the count of cases, confirmed cases in that particular district or city or that state. So that's how they were able to empathize with the users who are living in tier 2, tier 3 cities. they were not able to get a first-hand information on like what is happening around in India in this COVID-19. Only source of information for them was through news, but how they can check these things on online. And that's why when we say vernacular content and localization and relevancy adds a key parameter. So Hike, again through the design thinking approach, they have been able to reach 100 million users because they understood the Indian context. Like people love local languages. They love exchanging stickers when it comes to like regional or national events like Holi, Diwali. So they created these 15,000 plus stickers in over 40 languages to make them more connected. Google Lens, if you have ever tried Google Lens, it can now understand vernacular languages like Tamil, Telugu, and Marathi. For those of you who don't know Google Lens, it basically translates text. If you point your phone's camera at any banner or any document or anything else, so you just point your phone camera onto the text, and it translates it in a real-time way. So Bolo, this is now renamed as Read Aloud. It has now started supporting more Indian languages. So for kids, they like we went back, we understood like, okay, kids love speech based, like if someone can read out stories to them, that's what they love. Read out those classic stories or those comic stories from publishers like Chhota Bheem or Katha Kids. So those kind of native stories also could be a key factor in encouraging more, like helping more students, more kids to learn about these things that was there. It is like soon getting lost. So they came up with this application called Bolo, which was launched last year, if I'm not wrong, and now renamed as Read Along. It has support to more Indian languages now. So yeah, these are some of the examples, and not just that. These are some of the familiar names that you would have seen. Like they use design thinking as a strategy for innovation. Like Airbnb, it's a very classic case study. Do read it out. Like how the famed startup went from $200 a week profit to like a unicorn that is today. Design thinking is a part of Airbnb's success. They built a culture of experimentation. It is only when they gave themselves permission to experiment with non-scalable designs, scalable changes to the businesses, they climbed off what they call is the trough of sorrow. Uber Eats, on how they approach their food delivery services with the design thinking mindset. Like if the person at Uber Eats quoted like sitting back at their offices in San Francisco or New York, they can't truly understand the experience of the person sitting on the streets of person on the streets of Bangkok or London. So what they did is like they put design thinking and empathy to the practice. They understood they tried and understand all the different markets, how their products fit into those physical conditions of each city. And they constantly immerse themselves in the places where their customers live, work, and eat. Similarly, Bank of America came up with this Keep the Change program. It saw a huge conversion in terms of number of people opening up saving accounts in the bank. Nike became a fashion powerhouse through design in the 18th. In the mid 1980s, Nike released the Air Force One, which became a sensation. Like it was the first sneaker to incorporate its pressurized air technology that absorbs shock to help athletes. Similarly, PepsiCo CEO, when it was a time like few years back that it was said that Indra Nooyi should step down now. So they now thought of design thinking and it emerged in a very different way. So yeah, these are some of the examples of how design thinking has been utilized in corporates and businesses. And that's it from my side. I'm open to any questions.
All right. Thank you, Siddharth. I think that was a very, very interesting content that you shared about various sectors. I think it would have really apprised audience of what all can be done, with design thinking. And extremely, they would be, Googling more about it and maybe even coming to you for more help. So, okay,
Sure.
moving on to a couple of questions that we have from the audience. The first question is from one of our faculties, Dr. Rajneesh Mehra. He's keen to know that is the Japanese practice of continuous improvement, Kaizen, related with design thinking and empathy?
Yes, so continuous improvement goes back to design thinking approach. When we say continuous improvement, is basically you ideate upon something, you build something, and then you learn. So if you don't iterate back on it, you don't improve upon your product, the product fails. The market is changing drastically. There are a lot of, like, the user mindset is very volatile. It changes. So you have to keep changing to that user's mindset. You can't stick to one application and just do all the way on it and don't iterate upon it. So that's the whole reason the continuous improvement has to be there in a design thinking approach whenever you are doing something.
All right, okay, great. The next question is from one of our students. He wants to know what, according to you, Ramandeep, the student is, what, according to you, will be the 10 big innovations in the coming years?
Okay, that's a tough one, but I can still give it a try. But do read out. There's an interesting article on internet of which collates from Bill Gates and MIT. So both of them together predicts like those 10 big innovations where they talk about like uh, ingestible pills. Um, they talk about artificial meat. They talk about like cancer cure, which is a very specific, like it's a customized cancer cure. They talk about that. Um, they talk about smoother voice assistants. We're conversing. Also, to add on to that, a few things like in terms of technology, like quantum computing is gonna peak in some time. There's something called as machine learning on edge. So we have been seeing machine learning happening mostly on the cloud platforms, but sooner or later, things will fall back on the edge devices. Where when I say edge devices, it's basically like your smartphone will be able to do machine learning computations. Like it's still already there. Like you can see a lot of these applications which use machine learning on your machine learn that are powered by machine learning. But yeah, you will see more of those happening in a near future. Um, yeah, those are few things that I can recall. But I do check out that I'm not able to recall all of those 10, but they have listed down predicted some 10 big innovations that are gonna shape the world uh, in next decade.
All right, all right. Another question from one of our faculties who is very interested to know, Dr. Samarjeet Gill. Siddhant, her question is, what do you have to say on implementation of blockchain with respect to India? And, according to you, which industries do you think it will be beneficial about?
So blockchain, recently Niti Aayog, who is a strategic uh, partner for government of India, they help in strategic innovation and ideas that can help the Indian government. They came up with an interesting report on blockchain. I'm not sure if it is still available, but it was there last year at least, where they talk about like how they are planning to incorporate blockchain in a lot of government initiatives, government areas. It definitely has a scope in place in the near future. It's just that if you are confusing it with cryptocurrencies, then it would be a wrong thing to think about. Although, like RBI has lifted the ban of cryptocurrencies, but in a blockchain as a technology as a whole, I think there's gonna be a huge scope out there. When I talk about industry specific, there is agriculture that will have a good implementation of blockchain. There will be real estate that will have a good implementation of blockchain. And also healthcare. Healthcare is something that I am betting big on that can, like the blockchain can transform the industry in itself.
All right. Okay, great. Another quick question from the live audience. We have Mr. Sandeep Motwani. Thank you, sir, for joining us in the session. Siddhant, his question is, so there's an example of Hike Messenger. I feel even after providing native and more desi content, Hike failed. We do not have Hike on our phones anymore now. Any insights on this, that why it failed even it was one of the most unique messengers on Android? Thank you,
So
Sandeep, for the question.
yeah, so that would be like a personal bias to it, honestly. Like if you still look at the stats of the consumers, like daily average users, DAU as it says, the daily average users on Hike and WhatsApp, Hike is still at par with WhatsApp. Like WhatsApp is there, but there are a lot of users who are still on Hike. Um, I don't have a clear answer to it, honestly, but from the numbers that are quoted on a public forum, at least I can see that Hike still has that user base they have been able to maintain.
All right.
Although yes, there are a lot of features that WhatsApp has been improvising on and bringing it to the user, and making sure that the user retention is there, and that could be one of the reasons that Hike has not been able to improvise on their products in a faster way as compared to WhatsApp or any other messaging platform. Like if you look from that aspect, like even Telegram has picked up pretty recently as
Yes, indeed.
compared to other channels.
And it is doing really well. When it especially I saw this activity of Telegram going very active post this lockdown. So I think from WhatsApp to a lot of companies, and even Slack also, I believe. Slack and Telegram, they've really picked up really well. All right.
That's correct.
Next question is from Shubham. He needs to know, he's one of our MBA students. Sometimes, sir, innovation is just not enough. So implementation of that innovation is also required. What is your insight on this?
Of course, if you look back on the five stages of this entire design thinking, there's one key element, the fourth stage, which talks about prototyping. uh, Prototyping is essential. You just ideate, you just come up with innovation, that's okay. But you have to prototype and you have to test and validate. So both of them go hand in hand. So once your test and validate is successful, you have to definitely think about implementing it in future. If you think that no, there are flaws in the testing, that the validation is not proper as what you had expected, you have to reiterate the cycle. You have to go back. You have to empathize back with the user. You have to do more user interviews. You have to get into like more ideation. You have to get into prototyping again, and then retest on it. Implementation is crucial. Just the innovation won't make any difference unless it brings into the mainstream. Unless you're able to bring your innovation to the mainstream, then only things will change.
All right. Okay. Next question is, just a second. Yes, it's from Pranav Nagori. Are there any new innovations like one or two that you can quote that happened in lockdown period, according to you?
Um, Not pretty much things that have happened, but few things that I have I have seen is people coming up with innovative ways. So one of them that I quoted is the initial first case study of coming up with the transparent piece onto your face mask. That's an innovation in itself. Like you have those traditional masks, but you're excluding one set of audience, one set of community out there. So that's an innovation. Then I have seen a lot of innovation around like automating hand sanitizers. In like how can you think of, like there was a girl who created a very simple mechanical device that just you have to press without the hand. You just have to press it the way you open like a dustbin or sort. You you just press it and just like gives you the hand sanitizer to you. So a lot of hand sanitizing or related to healthcare, hygiene, innovations have happened recently. On a digital front, you would have seen innovation around video conferencing these days. Like
Yes.
government of India has also started this video
Question.
conferencing quest kind of. Companies are innovating around edtech. Like there's a huge
Absolutely.
surge in edtech companies. How they can reduce the screen time of of
Yes.
children and kids, but at the same time make it more interactive and usable for them. So yeah,
I think
these
one
kind of
sector that has taken a lot of, this branding and marketing, I would say, is edutech.
edutech.
And now
Correct.
slowly and steadily, all these video conferencing platforms are also getting a
Correct.
when our honorable Prime Minister has also requested an exclusive app for India.
Correct.
So where is he finding the Zoom unsafe? All right, lovely. Another question from one of our students, Gitanjali. How can we as entry-level employees showcase our innovative ideas and put forward in the company?
Okay. So there is something called as intrapreneur,
All
which
right.
is a
Yes.
term. We've always heard of entrepreneur as a term, but there's something called intrapreneur. Intrapreneur is basically innovation within a company itself.
Absolutely.
The companies these days are moving to a direction where they love employees coming up with innovative ideas. Um, I have seen a lot of company incubators which have their employees itself. Like Cisco has their own incubation and acceleration. They have, like many other companies have their own incubators and accelerators. And a lot of their own employees are part of this incubation and acceleration. So as an entry level employees, do check out whether your company, and most of these companies, like almost all the top MNCs will have their own incubation centers of sort. So do check out with them if they have any sort of such incubators or accelerators.
All right.
Work together, and that's where you can show your innovation.
All right. One last question before we wind up. What's your insight on data science? Quickly, I mean, we could do that. I thought we had time.
So insights on data science, I don't know. Like it's a very vague question. It's a very broad field, data science in itself. But
In
uh,
the coming, post COVID, what do you think it would, have an impact?
So one thing I always talk about is ML fairness, which is something called as how to capture in the information that is only vital to the application, but not everything and all and everything. So if as a data scientist, as an analyst, or as a machine learning engineer, you're building any ML product, just think about what is it that you want from users to give bare minimum. Like,
All right.
what is it that they can give the information to you, and you can capture it from them, and you can
Mhm.
keep rest of the information aside. But yeah,
All right.
in a whole, the data science industry is gonna flourish. Like we have seen these trackers, these real-time dashboards getting they're moving into a product prediction zone now. They're able to predict, okay, now is the count as, let's say, 1 lakh, based on the past analysis, what's gonna be and what are the measures that one can take.
All right. On that note, I would say that, thank you so much, Siddhant, for technologically uplifting us, making us more apprised of ideation, prototyping, testing, and validating. And also, just like you mentioned, the awakening of intrapreneur inside us. I'm sure students would have learned a lot from this session. I would say in the end that you're indeed a mentor of change, but also a mentor with so much of information for millennials. And last but not the least, heartfelt gratitude to respected founder president sir, honorable chancellor sir, and our dynamic director ma'am for giving us this amazing platform to have intellectual exchange of thoughts and questions. Big thanks to my fellow colleagues for their constant support, our IT team who's working round the day to give us such seamless transition to the webinars, and most beloved, our Amity students and live audience for making it such a huge success. Thank you so much from Amity. Thank you, Siddhant, for joining in.
Thank you so much. And my apologies for the technical glitch. If the students would like to connect further, my Twitter handle is @SaidAgarwal04. Feel free to connect over there.
Absolutely. I'm sure they would have taken the screenshot by now. All
Cool,
right.
cool. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a great day ahead. Thank you.